When it comes to resizing our photographs, if we do it incorrectly, it can degrade the quality of the image. Yet, if we take the appropriate steps, our photographs will look great. So, in the next few movies, let's begin to talk about how we can work with the image size dialog in order to correctly resize a few different images. We'll begin with this photograph here. With this image, let's go ahead and open up the image size dialog. We'll do that by going to the image pull-down menu, then we'll choose image size. The image size dialog is a dialog which we will use to resize our images, whether we want to resize them to a larger or smaller size. Now, when you first open this, it's kind of difficult to have a preview of the image, right? Because this preview panel is so small. So you can either hover over the edge and click and drag this out so you have a larger preview window, or if you're on a Mac, click on this green icon to extend this to full screen view. That's what I recommend that you do, and I do in my own workflow, because you really want to cover up the rest of Photoshop. It isn't relevant right now. All that we care about is the image size dialog, so let's go to full screen. Next, you also want to make sure you're viewing your image at this 100% view. If we zoom out, we can't really tell if we have good details in the photograph or if the image is falling apart. If we zoom in perhaps too far, we're going to see a view which is showing us too much. So the best way to evaluate your image is at that 100% view. You also want to click and drag to pan around so that you're viewing the most important part of the image. In this case, the face. You can see that this eye is sharp. The rest of the image, the background is out of focus. So I really want to make sure that I'm seeing this area right here. All right, well, let's move over to the right. On the right, we have a few fields with just display information, and then a couple of areas where we can make some changes. Let's start at the top. Currently, it's showing me my image size is about 16 megs. Okay. Next, we have some dimensions. If you see in this dimension some value which doesn't really make sense to you, click on this pull-down menu, and here we'll choose another option. For example, I'll choose something like inches. And then when I choose inches, it makes a bit more sense. Oh, this is an 8 by 12 inch image. I could print it at that size. Okay, great. Next, we have our width and our height. This is where we can make changes. Now, again, pixels aren't very helpful for me, so I'm going to inches. Now I can see I have an 8 by 12. The next option we have has to do with resolution, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the next movie. So for now, let's just leave it at 240, which is a great resolution for printing photographs. Down below, we have the option to resample. You want to leave this checked on. What this will do is it will ensure that whether you're sizing up or down, that Photoshop does its best to make sure your image looks good. And almost all the time, the automatic setting versus choosing one specifically is going to work best. So just leave this on automatic. Okay, we have the image. We've analyzed what we have. 16 megs, we have this file which has these dimensions. Let me go back to inches here so I can see that. 8 by 12 at 240 pixels per inch. Now let's say that I actually want to print this as, a 6 by 9. Well, to make that change, it's really as simple as going into one of these fields and typing in a new number. Now, once we do that, we should have noticed two changes. One is the 100% view changed, right? Because the image is now a little bit smaller. This is helpful because now I can evaluate this and say, hey, does the image look good? Yeah, looks sharp, looks good, I'm good to go. It also is showing me up here in my image size. It used to be 16 megs, and now it's about 9. Now, why does that matter? Well, that matters because sometimes what can happen is we'll make a change like this. Here we have the original dimensions, 8 by 12. And we decide, you know what? I actually want to make a 20-inch print. And we type in 20. Now it's 20 by 30. Okay, I made a mistake, right? And what's my mistake? Well, what it is I'm trying to stretch a 16 meg file into a 100 meg file. And it's just like I'm stretching it too thin. And the image, as you can see here, the 100% view is falling apart. So in a sense, as we make changes, we can look at our preview to double check things and also our image size. Now you can size up, but I just went too far from what I had. My file was too small to start with to be able to size it up that far. Okay, well, let's go back to where things were before. Now that we've talked through these fields, we've seen how we can resize, let's really resize this image. These are the original settings. I've decided I want a 6 by 9 inch image. So I go ahead, I change this to display inches so I can actually understand what that means. Then I type in my new number. I just sort of double check that my image size and my preview is looking good. Great. Here I'll click OK. And what that will do is it will then resize the photograph. Now, if you're new to resizing, what you may want to do is take one final step, which is to go to your image and image size dialog and just make sure that it now says the size that you wanted to resize it to. Yeah, 6:9, 240. Okay, I'm just double checking. I did everything right. And here I can just click cancel because really I was just using the dialog to sort of look up the size. Now, if you made a mistake in resizing, just undo the step and then redo it again until you get it correct.